terrorists hijack a holiday flight full of civilians. They rig the plane with high explosives.
One press of a button, the whole aircraft could be destroyed.
Over the next 6 days, the attackers showed no mercy.
They just change the dynamics of the game when you kill an innocent person.
The terrorists seem to hold all the cards.
It's a bad, bad target to attack.
With a massacre just seconds away, the Special Forces team have to go in.
When death comes through the door, all they think about is stopping those people in black coming towards them.
One of the male terrorists appears with 2 hand grenades. These are deadly moments.
The lives of 86 innocent hostages are in the balance. The rescue mission will go down in Special Forces history. Operation Fire Magic. October the 13th, 1977. Lufthansa Flight LH-181 takes off from the island of Majorca. It sets a course over the Mediterranean Sea. On board are 5 crew and 86 passengers.
Flight LH-181 was a typical holiday flight from Palma, Mallorca, back to Frankfurt. People had just enjoyed a good holiday, they were relaxed, they'd had a good time. Nobody could conceive what was about to happen.
As the pilot steers homeward bound towards Germany,
there were 2 terrorists at the back of the plane, 2 terrorists at the front. They're screaming, they're shouting.
The terrorists had pistols and grenades.
The passengers realised instantly this is a hijack situation.
the 4 terrorists herd the passengers to the back of the plane. They want all of the hostages where they can see them.
First thing they want to do is create fear on that plane. They grab a stewardess and they hit so hard that it crushes their face. It showed everybody on the plane that these guys are meaning business.
In the cockpit, Captain Jürgen Schumann and co-pilot Jürgen Viertel are held at gunpoint. They have no choice. They surrender to the terrorists. Captain Schumann is forced to set a course for Rome, Italy. The terrorists are in total control. The leader begins to mock his hostages.
He announced to all the passengers that he had taken over the aircraft and that he was in control. This was a moment of sheer terror for all the passengers. They knew that everything had changed and their lives were on the line now.
The plane is now near the south of France. The flight to Rome will take just over an hour. When the plane touches down, the terrorists radio the Italians in the control tower. Only now do they reveal what they want. The attack is the work of the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. During the 1970s, this group of political terrorists had been involved in hijacks across the world and had a history of murder.
They were fanatically committed to their cause, and they were wanting to see this through to the end.
If you comply with our instructions...
One of the most dangerous terrorists in the PFLP is leading the hijack. He calls himself Captain Marta Mahmoud.
The leader, Mahmoud, seemed to be really powerful within the group of four terrorists inside the aircraft, and he would destroy the aircraft, or he would kill people in order to get his own way.
This 22-year-old fanatic is a formidable opponent.
Captain Mahmoud's real name was Zuhair Akache. He had grown up in the refugee camps in the Middle East, where he'd become radicalized. But he was also a clever man. He trained in aeronautical engineering in the UK, and he learned how to fly Cessna aircraft.
I said listen!
Mahmoud reads his demands to the Italian authorities. The PFLP want $15 million, the release from prison of 2 Palestinian terrorists, and 11 members of the notorious Baader-Meinhof group. These left-wing militants had embarked on a campaign of bombings, assassinations, and kidnappings within Germany. If these dangerous terrorists aren't freed, and all of Mahmoud's terms aren't met, his team will destroy the plane and kill all of the hostages. In Germany, the job of dealing with the crisis lands on the desk of Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski, a minister in the German government.
Wisniewski had a number of very difficult roles to fulfill. One was to negotiate with all the countries in which the aircraft landed and to gain approval for armed action if necessary. The other, of course, was to negotiate with the terrorists, and the key point was buy time. The more time you had, the more space you had in which to act.
With 87 hostages' lives at stake, there's no time to waste. One of the first calls Wisniewski makes is to Germany's elite special forces team, GSG-9.
GSG-9 is a law enforcement SWAT team that are highly trained. They're trained in diving, they're trained in parachuting, coming out of helicopters, fast roping. They're trained in sniper operations, and of course, close quarters combat.
GSG-9, cracking force. You know, they ain't going to be fluffy about things. They're going to get on with the mission and sort it.
GSG-9 were born out of one of the darkest days in post-war German history. September the 5th, 1972, the Munich Olympics. Palestinian terrorists take Israeli athletes hostage. The German police launch a rescue raid, but it goes badly wrong. All of the hostages are killed. GSG-9, a specialist anti-terrorist unit, is created just 6 months later, so the same mistakes aren't made again. The new team is led by 48-year-old Ulrich Wegener.
Colonel Wegener was the driving force behind GSG-9. He had some experience working with the British SAS, also had experience working with Israeli special forces groups, and he was able to take a lot of that knowledge and create this souped-up SWAT team that primarily focused on anti-terrorism.
Wegener immediately realizes that attacking the hijacked plane will be an extremely difficult mission. He puts in a call.
Davies.
Barry Davies has spent years training with Britain's crack troops, the SAS.
The SAS had decided to set up counter-terrorist teams, and that had already been done some years before. We practiced on aircraft. Assaults were the big one, you know, how quickly you can get in from a starting point to actually closing with the terrorist and saving the hostages.
The SAS have pioneered new techniques and equipment to deal with plane hijacks. Critically, they have experience dealing with terrorists in Malaya and Northern Ireland.
The SAS were world leaders in counter-terrorism. And I guess GSG9 thought, yeah, let's have an observer team on board to see, you know, if they can help us out.
Within hours of the Germans' request, Davies and one of his SAS colleagues prepare to fly out and join the assault team. In Rome, the hijacked plane takes off after being refueled by the Italian authorities. On board, Mahmoud forces pilot Jürgen Schumann to fly towards the Middle East, looking for somewhere new to land.
Captain Schumann has to pilot the aircraft to destinations that hadn't been planned, destinations that are refusing him entry, and all the while with a gun at his head and the threat of the aircraft being destroyed.
The plane flies from Rome to Cyprus. It is then denied landing rights in Beirut, Damascus, and Baghdad. It's allowed a 1.5-hour stop in Bahrain before being forced to fly on to Dubai. It's been over 15 hours since the hijack began. For now, flight LH-181 is allowed to stay on the runway in Dubai. The passengers endure stifling heat, hunger, and dehydration.
It was a pressure cooker inside the aircraft.
The terrorists eventually allow food and water on board, but the conditions inside continue to deteriorate. Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski, the politician in charge of the operation, flies into Dubai and begins negotiations with the government there.
The politicians behind the scenes have to make sure that it's okay to bring another country's special operations force into a host country and conduct a mission. I mean, that takes delicate political maneuvering to be able to get that accomplished.
But Wisniewski cannot convince the Dubai authorities to allow the main GSG-9 team in to carry out the rescue mission. They insist on using local troops who don't have any specialist training. Only Wegener and 2 other GSG-9 officers are allowed to land. The rest of the GSG-9 team remain grounded. But there is some good news. The Dubai authorities do allow the 2-man British unit in to join Wegener.
We got on the plane, flew to Dubai. We then introduced ourselves to Wegener. We started talking, and it was like meeting a long-lost brother.
Wegener and Davies immediately start to plan for the attack. First, they need to know exactly what they're up against.
Gathering intelligence on the enemy is critical.
You need to know how many there are. You need to know what type of weapons they've got. Have they got explosives?
Your intelligence will be able to help you decipher who are the good guys and who are the bad guys.
On the plane, Captain Schumann takes an extraordinary risk. He seems to take a routine cigar break and throws the packet onto the runway.
He dropped the pack outside and somebody had the foresight to pick it up.
It might not seem like much, but it contains vital intelligence for Wegener. Inside the packet, Wegener finds 4 cigars. They are a pre-arranged coded message between Lufthansa pilots and Germany's security forces.
There were 4 in the pack, 2 of them were broken, which indicated there were 2 men and 2 women, and this was correct.
Thanks to Schumann, Wegener now knows exactly how many terrorists he's up against. On the runway, the plane's air conditioning unit stops working.
They were on a tarmac where it's 120 degrees. Terrorists are tired, passengers are tired, thirsty, you name it. Highly stressed on that plane.
The toilets were overflowing, passengers were vomiting, they were passing out. So the interior of the aircraft becomes an incredibly hostile place to be.
The airport authorities try to get the plane's air conditioning system running, but they pump fuel into the wrong tank. It forces the terrorists to open the plane's doors for fresh air. It's another intelligence opportunity for Wegener.
They revealed themselves to photographers who took pictures of them. This helped GSG-9 to identify them so that when they got on the aircraft, they could see exactly who were the terrorists and who were the civilians.
The terrorists' distinctive Che Guevara t-shirts mark them out as clear targets. It's a start, but Wegener is a long way off being ready to go. The assault team don't have all the specialist kit they need for the attack, and nor do the army in Dubai.
We made a list of kit, what we needed. Ladders, shotguns, pistols, and everything else we really wanted. Masking tape, hacksaws.
The authorities in Dubai may not have all the equipment to hand, but they do have one thing: money.
We then had 2 quartermasters with so much money you could choke a camel. And all they did was just go back into town and buy whatever we needed.
Once the equipment arrives, the team goes to work. They saw off shotguns so they're easier to use in a confined space. They spray equipment black so it won't reflect light. Even the ladders are adjusted for the height of the hijacked 737.
And we got to work getting people sawing the ladders to the right length. There's a manual actually on what length the ladders have to be for what type of aircraft.
Although most of the tools the team have to hand are low-tech, Barry has brought along a new SAS weapon that's cutting edge.
We developed a lot of quite exciting assets to help us. One of them was a stun grenade.
The stun grenades create a series of flashes and loud bangs.
Best way to describe it, if you go to disco sometimes and they flash the blue lights and everybody seems to move in a sort of jerky way, well, if you can imagine that with a high explosive in between each jerk, and that disorientated the terrorist enough so you could close with them.
The aim is to create a moment of confusion that will allow Wegener's team to board the plane.
Stun grenade back then was the latest technology, absolutely invaluable as a distraction, absolutely ideal in an aircraft.
Flight LH-181 has been in Dubai now for over 2 days.
Get your passports out.
Worryingly for Wegener, Mahmoud is becoming more unhinged. He goes through the hostages' passports, identifying those he thinks are Jewish.
This could have ominous implications for certain passengers should Mahmoud decide to start executing people.
At times, he delivers lectures on Palestinian politics. One is over an hour long.
A scarcely coherent rant, and he gets so fired up by this speech that he ends up discharging his gun. This is just one example of how his mental state is deteriorating as the hijack goes on.
At the other end of the airfield, a replica 737 has been commandeered. Wegener's team of GSG-9, SAS, and local Dubai Defence Force troops now use it to rehearse the assault.
My task was to train a team to actually take over the aircraft.
Because the squad hasn't worked together before, Barry goes back to basics.
So we had a team. I explained exactly what we're going to do, and we would do it as simple as possible. And the idea was to go in through the 2 emergency hatches either side, get past the passengers into the aisle. 1 2-man team would go forward, 1 2-man team would go to the rear, killing everything in his way until we got control of the aircraft.
Barry walks each person through the drill.
I choked each person on the back, and when I said go, you go there. When I said do this, they went there, and that's how it worked. When you actually start training and you've done it, the drill for 5 or 6 times, then you can do it without being instructed. So we just honed on everything then. Look, you could do it quicker. Eventually, they knew exactly what to do.
After hours of training, the team are ready. Wisniewski finally gets the clearance for the raid from the authorities.
And we had a green light to go that night, and we would have taken them out that night.
The assault team make their final preparations.
You just had the feeling it was going to go.
But then...
we saw the plane taken off. And then we were told that the plane had just left on its own accord. We actually thought it was over. I mean, there was a lot of disappointment. We thought we were going to return to UK.
Operation Fire Magic has suffered a major setback. On board Flight LH-181, Mahmoud forces Captain Schumann to set a course south.
You are messing about.
The hijacked plane leaves Dubai and heads towards the country then known as South Yemen, and its capital city, Aden. During the 3-hour flight, the terrorists reveal a terrifying surprise.
The terrorists took on board with them about 2 kilos of plastic explosive. They rig the aircraft, making it effectively into a flying bomb. One press of a button, the whole aircraft could be destroyed.
If that wasn't bad enough, another crisis looms as the plane nears South Yemen. Captain Schumann is refused permission to land.
The runway in Aden had been blocked.
The radio commands say you cannot land here.
But Flight LH-181 is running on empty, and there are no airports nearby.
Schumann, however, knows he has no choice. The fuel is exceptionally low.
Without permission, Schumann decides he's going to land on a rough strip next to the main runway. Its soft, sandy surface could cause the plane to flip when it touches down.
This is a rough landing. They are braced for disaster.
Schumann makes it. His passengers are safe for now. But it's only a temporary relief. The Yemeni authorities want flight LH-181 straight back into the air. Schumann is worried his plane isn't airworthy after the emergency landing. He wants to go outside and inspect it.
Yes, you can!
Incredibly, Mahmoud consents to this. Being an aeronautical engineer, he understands that the undercarriage needs to be in sound condition.
Schumann checks underneath the plane. He finds no serious damage, but he still has no fuel and needs to speak to the Yemeni authorities.
Crucially, without Mahmoud's permission, he walks across the runway and goes to the aid and control tower to talk with officials there.
Mahmoud thinks Schumann is escaping and is incensed. The airport authorities don't want to get involved. Schumann is forced to go back to his plane.
I warned you. Why did you defy?
Mahmoud turns on him.
A terrible silence fell over the aircraft after the shot, and people knew that the situation was changing into a dramatic new sphere.
Whether Mahmoud intended it or not, by murdering Schumann, there's now little hope of a negotiated settlement.
When you kill an innocent person, they just change the dynamics of the game, and now the mission is going to happen. You know, it's going to happen. There's no doubt in any of the team members' minds it's going to happen. It probably needs to go sooner than later.
There was a total mood change with everybody. From now on, we follow them to the end of the earth.
But for now, the GSG-9 team have to wait. The authorities in South Yemen refuse them permission to enter their country. After 10 hours on the ground, the Yemenis want the plane gone, and flight LH-181 is refueled and on the move again. Mahmoud now forces co-pilot Jürgen Vietor to set a new course. This time, flight LH-181 flies from the Middle East to Africa. Its destination, Mogadishu. It is the capital city of the country then known as the Somali Democratic Republic, a stable regime with good relations with the West. In the early morning, the plane touches down at Mogadishu Airport. Captain Schumann's body is unceremoniously dumped on the tarmac. Mahmoud begins negotiations with Somali police and German embassy staff. What they hear alarms them.
Mahmoud's mental state has completely deteriorated.
So you have tired terrorists that you're dealing with, and people can start dying really fast.
He's becoming increasingly unstable as the minutes go by.
Mahmoud sets a new ultimatum. If his German and Palestinian comrades are not released, and the $15 million not delivered by 3 o'clock that afternoon, the plane and everyone in it will be blown up. Shortly afterwards, a plane carrying Colonel Wegener, Barry Davies, and a small military team touches down. Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski, the politician, is also on board with the negotiating team. He pleads with Mahmoud for an extension to his deadline. Even if he could secure the release of the prisoners, there is not enough time to get them from Europe to Mogadishu before the time limit expires.
Wisniewski's negotiations with Mahmoud became increasingly fraught as the hijacking went on.
Mahmoud decides to show he means business. With half an hour to go before his deadline expires, he prepares to incinerate the aircraft and its occupants.
What they did do was use the duty-free alcohol, and they poured alcohol over them so they burn quickly. And they actually told them that's what they were doing it for. The people inside the aircraft got the feeling that they were getting close to the end.
Now! Come! Now!
Gabby Dillman, one of the cabin crew, relays a message to the team in the control tower. Feeling abandoned by the German government, it is a desperate farewell.
We know this is the end, and that we shall die. Many of us are too young to die. Still, it is better to die than to live in a world where human lives count for so little. I hope it will be quick.
She makes a heartfelt plea for their lives, but also there's a very bleak note to it. She mentions at one point, "We know that this is the end and we shall all die."
Wisniewski realizes he's out of time and adopts a high-risk strategy. He lies to Mahmoud and tells him exactly what he wants to hear.
They were being talked to and told that they'd won, and told them they could have the money, and told them they could actually talk to their friends who had been released from jails in Germany and would be on an aircraft and they could talk to them very soon. All these things gave them some hope that they were going to win and they were going to live.
Wisniewski's gamble works. Mahmoud believes his comrades have been released. He extends the deadline by 10 hours to give them time to be flown to Somalia. Wisniewski and the Special Forces team now have until 2:30 the following morning to launch the attack. Now Wisniewski asks the Somali government to let the rescue raid go ahead.
We were told to wait until we were cleared. Wisniewski had talked to the Prime Minister there and promised them all sorts of aid and weapons, and that did the trick.
The Somalis agree to the raid, but like in Dubai, they insist that local soldiers are involved as well. But this time, the full GSG-9 contingent of 60 highly trained operatives are allowed into Somalia. GSG-9's commander, Ulrich Wegener, goes to work straight away on the revised plan.
The plan in Mogadishu was a more elaborate plan than we'd had in Dubai. In Mogadishu, we had full team there, and we opened all doors simultaneously and the wings. So we had multiple entry points just in case somebody got blocked up.
Wegener's plan is that his team will approach the aircraft from its blind spot, the rear. They'll position assault ladders against the aircraft's fuselage at 6 entrance points. Somali troops will set off an explosion 300 meters away as a distraction. At the same time, stun grenades will disorientate the enemy long enough to allow Wegener's men in. Once through the doors, the team will systematically move through Flight LH-181 until it is cleared of the terrorists. It's an ingenious plan. But even so, this mission is full of risk.
It is a bad target to attack because you can't predict what the terrorists are going to do in such a confined small area with so many people on board.
An hour before Mahmoud's deadline expires, Wegener's assault team form up at the end of the runway. Separately, GSG-9 snipers have moved into concealed positions around Flight LH-181. They radio Wegener's team with information about the position of the hijackers within the aircraft.
They told us that the blinds were down and coast was clear. And in one big line, we walked towards the rear of the aircraft because there's a blind spot on the aircraft.
The team have to cross hundreds of meters of runway without being seen or heard.
Unfortunately, as we were walking towards the aircraft, the big searchlights which light up the old airfield throwing shadows at least 30 meters long. And if you'd looked out the window, you'd have seen this line of shadows coming towards you.
Fortunately for Wegener's men, Wisniewski's negotiating team distract the terrorists by keeping them busy close to the radio at the front of the aircraft.
We knew exactly where Mahmoud was. He was in the cockpit. The Somalis were talking to Mahmoud and saying, "You've won, my brother. I have just had news from Germany. They have released the friends. They are on a plane. They're in the air. In these 20 or 30 minutes, you can talk to them directly yourself. We have the money here. We can wheel it in front of you, give you the 15 million. And, you know, please don't kill anybody because you've won, you've won."
The assault team makes it to the plane undetected. They gather under the fuselage in their designated squads and ready themselves for the assault.
The teams with the ladders put them against the wing and also against the doors, front and rear.
The team now scale the wings and get into their final positions.
We crouched up right up next to the body where they can't see you. If someone's looking out the window, if the window is open, they can't see you because there's that little gap of dead ground. Now you've got to be yourself really tight in there until you get the go.
On cue, the Somalis set off a huge explosion as a distraction.
It was an almighty bang, and I think a whole Bowser worth of petrol went up. It just lit the place up like daylight.
Mahmoud is stunned in the cockpit, unsure of how to react. It's now or never for the attack.
Ulrich Wegener was counting. He counted down from 10. And then you hear, stand by, go. I can tell you now, the adrenaline just jumps up right to 100%. I threw the first stun grenade over the cockpit, and I threw the second one right across the cabin. And there was a mighty flash and bang.
At that very second, the assault team try to force the doors open.
These are 32-kilogram doors. They take a lot of force to open.
It's a blur, the door goes down.
And straight away they're inside with guns drawn.
When the GS9 went in, they were shouting Hinleg, get your head down, basically. Stay down, stay down.
They were able to get the hostages' heads down and start attacking the terrorists.
Wegener's men come face to face with their first terrorist. She is gunned down, falling to the ground, severely wounded. They have to move fast. The plane is still rigged with explosives.
The GSG-9 team fight with complete ruthlessness. They have to take out these people and stop them with excessive force.
Another terrorist advances. In his hands are 2 grenades.
These are deadly moments. If the hand grenades go off, the whole aircraft could be wrecked. But GSG-9 officers have only one choice.
One of the grenades, with its pin pulled, falls from the terrorist's hand. The stewardess, Gabby Dillman, is hit in the foot, and another passenger is wounded. But GSG-9 have had a lucky escape.
It wasn't a very good grenade. I mean, I think they were quite weak. I think most of it absorbed by the seating.
GSG-9 must take down the 2 other terrorists before it's too late. As one team moves forward, another tries to get the passengers off the plane as quickly as possible.
They were screaming to get the passengers out, and they started coming out in their droves. Initially, the people that come out the back door, which I could see, they were trying to slide down the ladder.
At the front of the aircraft, GSG-9 slowly advance and corner the most dangerous terrorist in the group, Captain Mahmoud.
Mahmoud is in the cockpit area, and he's opened fire with a handgun. He staggers back into the cockpit. He's still dangerous, reaching for a hand grenade.
3 of the cell are now out of action, but there's still 1 terrorist missing.
There are still explosives on the aircraft, there are still weapons, there's still a dangerous individual.
The missing terrorist is a woman, but where is she? Could she be hiding amongst the passengers? Wegener's men have to treat everyone as a potential suspect.
The GSG-9 team have to find her, and find her quickly.
Inside the plane, the hunt for the missing terrorist continues.
They heard the person in there.
She's been hiding in the toilet. The 4th and final terrorist is taken out. The mission is over. 7 minutes after bursting into the plane, Wegener radios in the code word, springtime. All of the terrorists are either dead or wounded, and the hostages are safely off the plane. Operation Fire Magic has been a complete success.
Everybody was really elated. We were all patting ourselves on the back and saying how good we were, and we were really pleased.
Wisniewski can breathe a sigh of relief. The politicians' tireless negotiations have played a crucial part in the mission's success. As the hostages have their first taste of freedom for 6 days, The one surviving terrorist, Suhaila Sayeh, is stretchered off the plane, defiant to the end.
The moment they got Suhaila out, which they thought was dead, she was very much alive, and they put her on a stretcher, and she put her hands up in the air and 2 fingers and shouted, "Free Palestine."
Later that morning, the team whose bravery and expertise had bought 86 hostages their freedom flies back to Germany.
And I didn't realize Lufthansa carried so much alcohol, and we made really good friends with the GSG-9 on that time coming back.
Wegener and his team land in Germany to a hero's welcome. Operation Fire Magic is a massive blow against the morale of the PFLP and its terrorist allies.
The mission in Mogadishu sent a message out to the terrorist world that they no longer held all the cards. The German authorities could say now that we are in control and that we can get back at terrorists if they try to strike at us.
When the news of GSG-9's success broke, 3 of the 11 Baader-Meinhof prisoners that Mahmoud had demanded be released commit suicide in prison. In the following years, Special Forces teams around the world study Operation Fire Magic as the textbook hostage rescue from a hijacked plane.
The GSG-9 mission would rank right up there with one of the most successful special operations missions in history because of everything kind of working together. The political side, the intelligence gathering side, negotiators, and the special operations drill that went pretty much flawless.
The operation in Mogadishu put GSG-9 on the map and gave them a deserved reputation for tactical excellence and for efficiency. And they built on that reputation ever since.